For Pacifica Radio, I'm Christina Onnested. The United Nations has condemned Israel's plan to indefinitely seize the Gaza Strip and take over aid delivery and distribution. This as Israel's starvation campaign of blocking food and other aid into Gaza is now in its third month. Mothers are describing using bird feed to feed their children. At least 57 Palestinians have starved to death since its blockade, according to Al Jazeera. Olga Cherevko, spokesperson for the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in Gaza, says Israel's new plan would still make aid difficult to obtain.
People with mobility issues or particularly vulnerable individuals who would not be able to reach these hubs. So that means that large areas of Gaza where these people live would not be able to receive assistance. So we have made it very clear that this plan that was presented is not in line with the humanitarian principles, and giving more operational control to a party to the conflict would risk aid not reaching the vulnerable people who actually need this aid the most.
Meanwhile, Axios is reporting Israel has set a new deadline next week after President Donald Trump's visit to reach a ceasefire hostage deal or increase its military campaign. This as more details are emerging of the plan Israel's cabinet approved Sunday, calling for the forcible displacement of some 2 million Palestinians to the south of Gaza and for the flattening of any buildings that remain standing. Axios is reporting Palestinians could then voluntarily leave in line with U.S. President Donald Trump's vision for Gaza, citing an unnamed Israeli official. No country has agreed to accept them. This as negotiations have broken down, with Hamas refusing to participate. A scheduled vote in the House of Representatives on a bipartisan measure seeking to ban boycotts of Israel was canceled Monday after far-right Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia publicly opposed it. While the measure, called the International Governmental Organizations Anti-Boycott Act, doesn't specifically mention Israel, its drafters say it targets the United Nations and the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions Movement, or BDS. In a social media post Monday, Greene said, quote, "It is my job to defend Americans' rights to buy or boycott whomever they choose without the government harshly fining them or imprisoning them," unquote. Republicans have largely lined up against BDS efforts and in support of Israel's war in Gaza. Canada's new Prime Minister Mark Carney is in Washington, D.C. for a meeting with President Donald Trump. Topics: Trump's trade war. Carney, like other allies, are seeking to ease stiff tariffs that Trump has imposed and that have created economic uncertainty around the globe. Trump's also exacerbated tensions with the U.S. northern neighbor by saying he wants to make Canada the 51st U.S. state. Trump told reporters he wasn't quite sure why Carney is visiting. Meanwhile, the Trump administration has asked a judge to toss out a lawsuit challenging telehealth access to the abortion medication mifepristone, effectively kicking the issue down the road. All 4 international airports around Moscow have temporarily suspended flights as Russia says its forces intercepted more than 100 Ukrainian drones that targeted a dozen Russian regions. The Trump administration says it will pay undocumented immigrants in the U.S. $1,000 plus travel costs if they self-deport. The Department of Homeland Security said Monday people who use the CBP Home app to announce their self-deportations would get the money and be deprioritized for detention and removal. Rwanda's foreign minister confirmed Sunday its government is in early-stage talks with the Trump administration about possibly taking in migrants deported from the U.S. Meanwhile, news is surfacing from El Salvador that Trump's ally, President Nayib Bukele, rose to power through massive payoffs to at least 2 gangs of $250,000 to coerce electoral votes in favor of Salvador Sanchez Cerén for president and Bukele as mayor of San Salvador in the 2019 election. This as a self-styled coolest dictator hypes his prisons for gang members and turning El Salvador into a safe nation after his ascent to president. The online publication El Faro released the expose, posting an excerpt of an interview with a former gang member of the 18th Street Revolucionarios. El Faro says it's now bracing for arrests of at least 7 of its journalists. Attorneys general in 19 states and Washington, D.C. filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration's cuts to the Health and Human Services Agency Monday. They say the massive restructuring has destroyed life-saving programs and left states to pick up the bill for mounting health crises. Here's New York Attorney General Letitia James.
This administration is taking a wrecking ball to the Department of Health and Human Services. HHS is responsible for protecting and preserving public health. And since taking office, this administration has fired scientists, closed labs, shuttered life-saving programs. The federal government has cut lab capacity so much that they have all but stopped testing for measles in the middle of an unprecedented measles outbreak.
About 20% of its staff have been cut, entire departments gutted. I'm Christina Onestad reporting for Pacifica Radio.